What's going on in the control room today? Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Friday, 5th of July. Edward, how are you doing? Long weekend in the United States, long weekend in Canada on the front end of this week. It's a big 10-day summer festival now.
And Summerlicious is back on, I understand.
Summerlicious, yes.
Jesus. Okay.
So, what's going on in there?
The control room is
live or what?
The control room is out of control.
Yeah, okay. So Ed, what do you see going on in the markets today?
Well,
we got some trimming done last night, didn't we? Well, I did.
You did.
I did, and Donnell did.
Donnell.
Yes.
Donald.
Donald.
Yeah, not Donnell.
Not Donald.
Donald.
Donald. Donald's going to hate us if we keep having issues with his name. So we trimmed 4 plants last night. The Midas Letter garden
two plants
officially went down. We are not going to have any footage of that for you today because we are editing it down. We're going to show you that on Monday.
Yeah, we couldn't show it to you because we were sampling the product in such copious quantities that we couldn't finish.
And we weren't really, couldn't really understand what we were saying. And a lot of non sequiturs, unfinished thoughts. Forgot where I put my beer at one point. Yeah, so then we decided, screw this, let's go out for dinner instead and drink some more wine.
Yeah.
Which we did, and that was fun.
That was fun.
So yeah, today here in Toronto, it's the hottest day of the year. How about where you are? Tell us in the comments. But yeah, we're looking at a Humidex reading of 41 degrees today. That's like...
It's warm.
That's beyond warm. That's freaking hot.
Hot?
Hot and muggy.
Hot and muggy.
What does muggy mean exactly?
Muggy?
Muggy. Like, does it have, like... Is it like it's so hot that you're getting mugged by the heat? Like, is in a commission of a crime.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You don't know?
Well,
so today we've got Newsmer Suzanne Garcia is going to be joining us at 3:05 to give you guys the news of the day. Next week we are going to be visiting Bruce Linton in his backyard to talk about his career trajectory and his contribution to the markets generally. Next week we are going to, today we've actually got Bruce Campbell from Stonecastle Asset Management. He's going to talk to us today about the Stonecastle Cannabis Fund and some of its holdings, which will be no coincidence that, that little logo right there might be mentioned. Coincidence? I don't think so. And also, Matt Murphy will be here from Khiron. Khiron, of course, is one of our sponsors. And also, we're going to be talking to... I'll be talking to Ed. Ed will be talking to me.
I'll be talking to you.
He'll be talking to me. We're going to look at some of the cannabis performance this week. It's been a real quiet week for obvious reasons. 1st of July, 4th of July, everything in between. We're probably not going to talk too much about Bruce Linton's leaving Canopy Growth anymore because we're enjoying the massive flow of, let's just say, clearly uninformed speculation as to the driving causes behind that. We're going to let the truth reveal itself in its usual, inimitable, gradual, incremental fashion on our show, and with Bruce's participation, which will be very helpful. Next week, we're going to be talking to Cam Batley about Aurora and how the changing of the guard at Canopy and with Constellation might affect Aurora. Does that have any effect on Aurora? Does that affect Aurora's thinking at all? Cam Batley's going to let us know about that. What else we got coming up? We've got, Matt Bottomley, Canaccord Genuity analyst, is going to be joining us not next week, but the week after. We were going to try to have him last week, but he's actually out on vacation this week. But we've got a whole bunch of analysts lined up for next week to talk about the sector generally. Now that we're in the throes of the summer doldrums and markets are drifting lower, as they are wont to do in the summer, we're going to talk to some institutional money guys and see where they think the market's going to perk up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, volumes are, it's quiet. I've canvassed a lot of my colleagues, get the same kind of response.
Crickets?
Crickets.
Don't call me. I'm on vacation, you asshole.
Crickets.
Anyways, here's Suzanne Garcia with the news of the day.
Here's the cannabis news making headlines this Friday, July 5th. Tilray announced the expansion of its European leadership team with 5 new senior appointments. The new appointments will work collaboratively with Tilray's existing senior team across the globe to accelerate the company's aggressive European and international expansion strategy. Nutritional High International announced that its distribution partner and licensed operator in Southern California has received a 1-year provisional distribution license for adult use and medicinal products. In conjunction with the recently granted provisional distribution license for its Sacramento facility, the company has effectively tripled its distribution capacity in the past month. Operations under the new license will commence immediately. Zoomer Media confirmed the second stage in its recent deal with Canopy Growth. The first stage involved the licensing of the CARP recommended and Zoomer recommended seals. This next phase will see 2 new lines of medical and recreational cannabis products developed and sold under the CARP and Zoomer brands directly. Naturally Splendid announced its recently launched Natira Sport Key to Life Keto Bars. The bars are now available in retail outlets across Canada, including Whole Foods, Sobeys, Loblaws, Longos, Metro, as well as many more retailers across the country. Sales of this product have exceeded $285,000 in the first 3 months of the official launch date. Horizon ETFs Management has completed the quarterly rebalance of the constituent holdings of the Horizons Marijuana Life Sciences Index ETF, the Horizons US Marijuana Index ETF, and the Horizons Emerging Marijuana Growers Index ETF. The HMMJ portfolio recently expanded to include Sproutly Canada, Balance Growworks, Abacus Health, and 7 other constituents. Horizons also rebalanced its HMUS ETF for the first time since the ETF was launched in April. HMUS is the world's first US-focused marijuana index ETF. This rebalance included Body and Mind, Ignite International Brands, Canex Capital, Dixie Brands, and 7 other new index constituents. And that's your news for today.
Anyways, so interestingly, Bruce wore his T-shirt for Martello Technologies, symbol MTLO on the TSX venture, and the shares promptly spiked from 12 cents to 43 cents, which was kind of funny. I've got the chart right here for that. Oh, what happened there? It was
What's the ticker?
MTLO. Can you see my MDI in the control room there, boys? Oh, well, that's not very good. Let's go back to the... Yes, I am. Okay, let's go NDI. Let's go... Let's not do that. Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah, look at that, eh? Wow, that hit 60 cents today.
Yeah. Why can't I see quote me quote still? There it is. Okay, here we go. How about now? Is there the screen? Okay. Gonna have to kill the NDI and start it again. Let's do that. And here we go. Now we'll try it. How about now?
How about now?
YouTube page. Let's just kill Firefox. How about now? Boy, this has got to be excruciating for the folks at home. Nothing? Okay.
Okay.
Anyways, so I had a conversation with Bruce Campbell from Stonecastle Asset Management. Here's that. Okay.
Oh.
Why is it on the teleprompter then? Okay, tell you what, Bruce Campbell's not quite ready to talk to us, so Ed and I are going to continue to talk among ourselves.
We're going to talk about
Gold.
Well, look at
What's happening in the gold space,
Gold got
Ed?
pounded today. They said something about they don't. I think someone said maybe they don't need to make a cut in the interest rates. So it seems to be driven by.
Well, Trump, the so-called president, he made a comment that if the Fed would keep the rates low, it would boost the economy. Obviously, having zero regard for pensioners and borrowers around the world who are thinking, boy, if you keep the value of money at zero, then what does the value of money become in the long term? Is it zero? I think it might be zero. I don't think that a continuous policy, is it possible that Donald Trump doesn't understand the implications of long-term zero interest rate policy? Is that possible? Is it possible that his financial circle of advisors actually don't understand monetary cycles and interest rates and how that is all tied into the global economy?
Well, maybe we're going into a new paradigm.
A new paradigm. Fantasy world. We're all going to be a cartoon. Speaking of cartoons, did you happen to see the lovely... Actually, wait, this isn't going to work unless my NDI is working. So let's focus on this. If you're watching, following along at home, don't try this at home because it's just a waste of bloody time. And frustrating beyond all description. I would like to announce today, and you're hearing it here first, and I can do this because we're not talking about a publicly traded company, but a certain company in which we are certainly, kind of involved with, has received the first and only license to sell cannabis medications in Peru. And so...
The only one.
The only one.
You're the only one.
We are the only people who have this license.
Do they know that?
Does who know that?
The Peruvian government.
Yeah, they do. That was the whole deal.
How did you get this? How
We've got, hablemos español, por ejemplo, y tenemos muchos relaciones bueno en Perú con la gente, but never mind, we're not going to go there. Let's just say that we have a long, deep history in Peru, and we know how to get shit done there, which a lot of people don't.
Right.
So, and so we were able to do that. This is a company that is a private company. If you're an accredited investor and you are on our subscriber list, and meaning we have a previously existing relationship with you, I can tell you about this private opportunity. This is not a solicitation generally for the audience at all. You have to be on our mailing list, thereby having a pre-existing relationship with us. So get on the list if you want to hear the best. Right, Ed? Anyways, going back to my rather frustrating NDI issue, let's just confirm that I am on the GFN network.
Right.
Step one. Oh, it's put me back on the 5G other network. Okay, how about now, Donnell? Yes! Okay, we were saying, Bruce Linton wears a Martello Technologies t-shirt, and look what happens to the stock. Stock basically triples in just a matter of days. And is this what we're going to come to refer to as the Linton effect going forward?
The Linton effect.
The Linton effect.
Right. Well, look, I mean, it's, and this is basically only moving because
Bruce Linton wore a t-shirt that said Martello Technologies. People looked at it and said, oh, but if you back this out to a year, Bruce, if you look back here, this is where the company went public, and Bruce announced that he was the chairman of the company. So that's what happened that day. But look how quickly it sold back off into oblivion.
Yeah.
So, you might call this a good shorting opportunity. It's certainly not sustainable because it's not based on any financial information from the company,
right,
or on any fundamental data. It's just based on the fact that Bruce wore a Martello t-shirt. So if you're going to try to jump on that bandwagon, our opinion is you might want to wait because you could get hurt.
You want to jump.
Yeah, unless, of course, you're going to short it, but I also don't want to cause any problems for Martello by suggesting that that's a good idea.
No. And just, look.
We're not shorting it. We're not long.
We're not long. We're not short.
Disclosure.
I mean, we really should have been long 3 days ago.
Well, and we should be short now.
We should be flat now, at least.
No, actually, Martello Technologies, so among the various, they provide enterprise level network management. So How do I know this? Because we had a discussion with Martello about them deploying a load balancing system in our network, because we've got lots of broadband here, but we're constantly fighting with each other for bandwidth, thanks to the fact that pornography consumption seems to be somewhat prolific in this office.
Really?
Don't feign innocence with me, mister.
Why am I turning red?
Why are you? No,
I try to keep my,
distance.
That's an area I'm trying to,
Stay away from.
Well, I don't want to get too comfortable with it.
Oh, interesting. So as I was saying earlier, I had a conversation with Bruce Campbell from Stonecastle Asset Management. We were talking about the Stonecastle Cannabis Fund, and here is that conversation. All right, Bruce Campbell joins me now, Portfolio Manager of Stonecastle Cannabis Growth Fund. Bruce, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
You bet. So Bruce, let's start with an overview. You've obviously moved heavily into the cannabis sector. You've got some favorite names out there, but what is it in the cannabis space that you're most attracted to now in terms of company configuration?
I mean, there's a few areas that we like. Obviously, the extraction area we think continues to be fairly big. With the fact that, now we're going to see these concentrate markets open up. They're talking sort of December, but more likely, January of next year when those open up. And there's going to be so many different products that need extraction. So we think that space is going to be fairly big. And then in the U.S., we continue to think that there's opportunities there, both from a branding perspective, from a multi-state operator perspective, and then all the ancillary services. And then looking at Europe and South and Central America, I really take a look at those and think that they're probably 3 years behind where we are in Canada. And so we think there's opportunity there as, we start to really get into medical and then probably down the road recreational markets there in those markets.
Sure. I'm looking at your top 10 investments, and Khiron Life Sciences is right up there. They're a Colombian-based but sort of international in scale and scope and footprint. How did you come to be aware of Khiron Life Sciences, and what is it in particular that attracts you to a company like that?
Yeah, so we originally got shown Khiron back when they were doing one of their financings, when they were still a private company. We looked at them. We weren't able to access the company just because of liquidity and the fact that they were still private at the time. But then we participated in one of the financings as they were going public, and participated in one of their subsequent financings. We like it just because of the profile of where they are, the fact that they have a market that they're building out both in Colombia but in Mexico as well. And we think eventually growing and cultivation will be commoditized, and it'll really probably come from those areas, from the Colombia, Mexico area, where it makes more sense from a growing standpoint to do it, where you can do it and your cost is so much lower. You'll end up extracting that product and then go into a brand and go into an end product, and people won't really be too concerned about where it comes from. But in the meantime, Khiron obviously has good management team, a very strong management team, and they've been continually building that business out, both from the cultivation side of things, but also from the brand side of things.
Sure. Khiron is one of the companies that I've seen who has most aggressively exploited the cosmeceutical category that seems to be sort of nascent with the advent of cannabis as an ingredient. And to me, the sort of the maturity that they've developed already in the Cuida brand line that they've launched in Colombia and in Mexico strikes me that they've kind of got a leading position in that cosmeceutical segment globally as a result of that sort of visionary forward leadership. Does that participation, that sort of segment, seem meaningful to you?
It does, and we think that continues to grow. If you look at that market, as far as the use of those type of products in Latin America, they're huge. Sales per capita are probably higher than most other places on the globe, and so that's going to really give them a footprint and a testing ground to be able to refine their products and to get it dialed in as the rest of the world then adopts those products and are rolled out worldwide. So we do think that's important, and it's something, and one of the reasons that we are in Khiron.
Right. And then in terms of the labor costs in Latin America, they are sufficiently lower than what they would be in North America to constitute a competitive differentiator in your view?
They are. I mean, between the labor costs and even if you looked at the full in cost of production, because a lot of them can be used outdoor, but even if they are growing in type of indoor facilities or they need power, their power is still probably at a competitive rate, especially if you compare it to Ontario.
Right. Okay. Now, some of these other names on here, it's interesting that the names that you have as your top investments reflect many of the names I personally have as my top investments or have had in the past. So it seems to me, if I was to just look at this top 10 list as from a 50,000-foot view, I see like two patterns in here. I see that you're very attracted to people who are focused on extraction rather than cultivation in some cases, and then you're also focused on the U.S. multi-state operator model. Would that be an accurate sort of takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, those are the two areas that we think have the most immediate opportunity. And then, obviously Europe goes beyond that. There's not a lot of investable opportunities for Europe yet, but so, most of it is what we're looking at in Canada, because we're looking again for cash flow. And you look at the Canadian extractors in Neptune, Balance, and Metafarm, and they're the ones that are generating cash flow. And then down in the U.S., obviously the multi-state operators, especially if they're in if they're in limited license states, then they have an opportunity here to really build and gain real estate before we see some type of legislation change that happens. Are anyone's guess, but I would imagine in the next 5 years you see some type of legislation change and then it's legal.
Right. I read about in the Globe and Mail, you talked about a company called Halo Labs down in California, who's in Oregon, California, Nevada. And as a result of that, I went into some research and discovered that they have this quite a diverse product line of extracts. And then they've got this new thing called dab tabs with the Shatterizer, which I've never seen anything like it before. But Halo's not on your top 10 list. Is that just because it's kind of new for you?
It's new, and it hasn't been as liquid until late. So we have it actually split up into a couple different holdings. So we own some of the common stock, but we also own a convertible debenture as well. So it shows up as two different positions. So if you combine those, it would probably show up in the top 10, but as individuals, they don't.
I see. And what was it particularly about Halo that attracted you?
So they have, again, going back into extraction and kind of the expertise there, they have some expertise in extraction, and they have a number of different extraction solutions. So they're not just CO2 or ethane or butane, but they provide a number of different solutions. Plus, they've been innovative in their product design. So the dab tabs, and now they're actually trying to introduce a product which will be a dab tab vape type of product, which could again sort of revolutionize the business to a certain degree.
Sure. The Shatterizer dab tab combo you're referring to, I actually interviewed Khiron, the CEO, in London last week, and that combined with this move into Lesotho, which is something that, when I see these, look, a lot of the companies move into Lesotho, and I'm like, what's with Lesotho? Why is everybody going to Lesotho? And then I also interviewed the Deputy Prime Minister of Lesotho last week, and now I understand that, Lesotho is basically this sort of elevated mountaintop kingdom that's got the ability to grow great cannabis and service the 60 million market-strong market of South Africa, which is significant. But they're planning to service Europe from extracts produced in Lesotho at super low cost because it's a low-cost nation.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, you've seen a number of the different Canadian LPs all head over there, and eventually I think the African market is going to be big. There's going to be a competition there with the black market to begin with, as much as there is in Canada. But eventually that gets regulated. But the European market, if they can get GMP facilities set up so that then they can export into Germany would be the first place, and then sort of beyond that, as we see country by country roll out medical or recreational programs, then there's going to be a huge opportunity there. And as you mentioned, the cost of production is going to be very favorable, especially compared to indoor Canadian facilities.
Right. Halo Labs has 120 million warrants overhanging the stock at 80 cents. How much of that, how do you perceive that in terms of a barrier to the investment thesis for new investors coming in? Do you think that's a manageable sort of overhang that is ultimately going to get chewed through because of the milestones the company will achieve?
Yeah, that's what we think. I mean, obviously, investors have to be cognizant of that. And, as the stock probably approaches that level, you will see some pressure on it, especially as it sort of pops over, into the low 80s. There'll probably be some pressure as people who have been sitting on the stock exercise their warrants and then, sell the stock to probably exercise those warrants. But at some point in time, it will chew through that, and it will chew through it based on their business. If they can, do all the guidance that they've suggested that they can, then at some point in time, the market's going to say, okay, well, we're willing to put a higher valuation on this fully diluted than what it's worth now, and it will chew through those warrants and go to a higher level, which will of course also help the company because they'll have all this cash that comes in to accelerate their business without having to do a new equity financing, but they're it's kind of built in from the previous financings.
Sure. Let's talk a bit about Stone Castle Cannabis Growth Fund now. What kind of investor is it appropriate for, and how do they get involved?
Yeah, so I mean, we took a long time to get it set up. When we set it up, we wanted to have the flexibility to kind of go anywhere with it, and so we worked quite extensively with the Securities Commission to get it set up. And so that's really what we've designed, and what our feel is that cannabis is going to be the fastest growing sector, or one of the fastest growing sectors over the next decade in the world. And so we want to be able to take advantage of those anywhere. So if you're a growth investor and you want a piece of the cannabis market, it's very difficult to try to pick individual names. For one, the sector is extremely volatile. We talk about this now being the 8th wave that we've seen since we've been in the sector, and we started back in 2013. And those waves can be, 50% down and over 100% up. So you need professional management, in our opinion, and you need diversification. And so we add both of those. And what we do is we're able to act a little bit quicker. So we think that we add a lot of value to to a holding. If you had something like the HMMJ, that can be a good base, and then we can add sort of some diversification there, being able to act a little quicker and get into opportunities that they can't necessarily immediately act. And so we think that we're a nice complement to them, and a portfolio should have a combination of sort of that passive approach and our active approach as well.
Okay, great. Bruce, that's a fantastic first conversation with you. I'd like to do this again and again and again and again. So we're going to leave it there for now, and I'll come back to you soon and we'll do this again. Thanks for joining me.
Yes, perfect. Sounds good. Thank you.
Let's talk about Aurora. Recently, your financials, you've more or less delivered on.
Here are the headlines moving markets today.
If you're lucky to buy it 3 days ago at 37 cents,
and I think it has a lot to do with some of these smaller names giving really.
Recreational cannabis is here.
It's quite dry. So I'm going to eliminate the stocky bits.
Just by way of full disclosure, obviously Halo Labs is our client, as you can tell by the, where is it? Ed, I'm pointing at your nose because you're leaning into the shot. There we go. Halo Labs
pointing into my nose.
Sponsor. Halo Labs is a producer of extracted vape products in the Oregon, California, Nevada markets. Visit them online at halocanna.com to learn more about those guys. Ed, the gold market is volatile. Up, down, down, up, down.
Today,
down, up.
down 20. At one point, it was down almost $30. Now it's only down about 12 or 13, or maybe 15 or something like that. But it's all over the place, and I think that's going to continue. That's going to continue.
One of our illustrious watchers says U.S. Oh, where did it go? I had it right in front of me here. U.S. dollar up against the yen equals gold down. What do you say about that comment?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, so much of this is sort of the macro thing, right? If the U.S. dollar is the, you know, go-to place, then everything else sort of suffers.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about here.
That's what we're talking about. Okay, well, let's take a look at the cannabis indexes here today because
that's a good idea.
You never know. It's been very slow, it's been very quiet, obviously because we're in a big-time summer, the biggest holiday week of the summer next to Labor Day, I would say. And looking at the large cap index, we're actually lost quite a bit to 9,944. Down 0.5%. Well, I guess that's not that much. It seems like more for some reason to me today. Maybe, I don't know why. But let's go see who's dragging it up, who's dragging it down.
Yeah, no,
Aurora's lost the most, 1.5% down today to 985. And Ed's monitor's not working for some reason.
Yeah.
So he can't see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to close my eyes. I'm closing my eyes.
You're closing your eyes. You're in the dark.
I'm in the dark.
So the Green Organic Dutchman up 4.82% after a big down day yesterday. That's kind of interesting. Organigram Holdings recovered 1.18% today, up 10 cents to $8.55. And then Kronos Group has not been able to stay above $20 today. It's trading down 0.25 or up 0.25%, up a nickel to $19.99. Not quite enough. Looking at some of the other indexes here.
What about that one yesterday that was up big? MYM, the ticker MYM.
Yeah. Looking at the CSE index is up 0.21%. I think that's where we're going to stumble across that MYM. And let's see, big losers in this side, or the big winners in this side. CLS Holdings USA, don't know what that is. Asia Cannabis Corp, that's a dime stock, who cares? Belgravia, who cares? Weekend Unlimited, dime stock. It's recovering some, actually. I bought that stock at 20 cents. I'm not exactly happy about that. Global Health Clinics, never heard of them. Look at all these penny stocks that are now crowding out the indexes. And this is symptomatic of a very maturing market. When you start to see penny stocks, like, and I'm talking, when I say penny stocks, I'm talking a dime or less coming out of the woodwork. You know that it's getting to be a place where the promoters have decided, even the slowest promoters have found a shell to repurpose into this thing. Investors need to be very careful of that. Let's see which the big losers are here. Well, look at that. There's your MYM Nutraceuticals, Ed. The big winner of yesterday is the big loser of today.
Yeah,
so
So that might be something. I mean, if you're a trader, the ones that get pounded today, maybe you buy them for tomorrow for a trade. Or
I don't know. I look at that big spike up, and the spike down the next day is somebody got touted on something that did not turn out to be real because there was no news to back it up. So basically, the market strikes again. The hype machine takes another victim. Another transfer of wealth has occurred. One victim, one winner. That's the way it goes. It's a zero-sum game, folks. Step right up. Put your money down and turn around. Ready to get slapped on the ass with a promoter paddle.
The promoter?
Yeah. Okay, let's look at the small cap index now. It's up slightly, 0.61%. Again on, let's see, it looks like super light volume. Let's go to the intraday look. Yeah, volume of 20 million shares totally traded from the small cap. Big movers to the upside. Tetra Biopharma, well, Tetra Biopharma is down from a multi-month high of, what was that? Geez, now I have to go look at a chart of Tetra Biopharma. So Tetra Biopharma, look at that. There's a long ride down. Whoa. This thing started dropping back in, looks like October of 2018. And this is right after, basically, they sold all of their U.S. assets to Ianthus. And it looks like that might have been the death knell for...
So did they get a lot of cash for that?
Yeah, they got cash.
Are they sitting with a lot of cash?
No.
Why not?
They spent it.
On what?
Hooker and blow. No, I don't know what they spent it on. They invested it, obviously. Scott Boys, Scott's on here regularly. He knows what he's doing. Anyways, so that's what's happening in that space.
I want to mention to you the big chart, the big index that you've developed. It's starting to look like it's getting comfortable at that point of support, which, if it doesn't get off of that point, excuse me.
Whoa! Don't choke there, young fella.
Yeah, I think this market, you know, the trouble with weakness sort of perpetuates weakness.
Yeah, looking at this chart here for the last 3 months, like, what does that tell you?
That's 3. Let's put up to 6.
Yeah, okay.
Look any better? Oh, okay. So yeah. Here's what it's telling me. Okay. So. Okay. So look.
So you got to make some moves on here so people can see it.
Yeah. All right. So I don't know if this is going to work, but I would just
your chart now.
Well, that's gold.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay. That's the gold chart. But that's kind of a, you know what, we can put up any chart and talk about it if you want.
Well, let's talk about the one that we started with first.
All right, let's get it up there.
Yeah.
And that's on Midas Letter. I want to point this out because I think this is important for our viewers right now. You want to hear about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The point being, on this chart, it looks like a major distribution top. You've got, you know, back in February, you got, yeah, well, so look, you see it go up there, and now what? What do you got there now?
Well, I just zoomed in on that segment.
Okay. Now, I think we're getting ready to roll over. It looks to me like this index looks like it's going to roll over.
You think?
Well, it could go up too. There's no question, but.
Well, if you look
volume's drying up.
Well, that's just, but
that's summer doldrums.
Well, and it's the week of 4th and 1 of July, the Canadian and U.S. long weekends bracketing this week. This has got to be the deadest week of the summer. If you're going to try to read the market off of these last 3 days, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. Who? Okay, Matt Murphy from Khiron Life Sciences joins us now.
Khiron Life Sciences Corp. is a Latin American-based pharmaceutical company that develops and commercializes medical cannabis products. Khiron has core operations in Colombia and is fully licensed in the country for the cultivation, production, domestic distribution, and international export of both THC and CBD medical cannabis. In May 2018, Khiron listed on the TSX Venture, becoming one of the first Colombian-based medical cannabis companies to trade on any exchange globally. Khiron Life Sciences Corp. is listed on the TSX Venture under the ticker symbol KHRN.
I'm joined now by Matt Murphy, Chief Compliance Officer of Khiron Life Sciences, trading on the TSX Venture under the symbol KHRN. Matt, welcome back.
Thanks, James. It's a pleasure to be with you again. Very much appreciate it.
You bet. Matt, there's a lot of uncertainty in minds of investors, arguably, about the ability of security to protect the interests of cannabis companies in not just Latin America, but the entire world. And is your position as former DEA head of compliance and diversion, you've got some very specialized knowledge in that regard, and in fact you've joined a roundtable consisting of some members and former DEA guys. Tell me about what you're doing to mitigate the risk of security as it pertains to cultivation sites and everything in Latin America, as well as this roundtable.
Sure. So in regards to the security and compliance that Khiron is undertaking as we evolve and expand our operations globally, I have brought on several former high-level DEA investigators, managers that worked with me or that I knew from my time with DEA. These former high-level DEA management personnel have significant amount of experience working in countries where Khiron will be operating soon or is operating now. For example, Larry Holyfield is a former country attaché for Mexico, which means he was the highest ranking DEA agent assigned to Mexico. He lived in Mexico for approximately 4 years. He was also assigned to Guatemala and has experience in Uruguay, all places that we expect to be in. Obviously, Mexico is a place where we have a country manager. We have significant opportunity as soon as things become clearer from a regulatory perspective there. The reason that this is important is because Larry has extensive relationships with former generals in Mexico, the former attorney general in Mexico. So as we expand and evolve into Mexico specifically, we know because of Larry's relationships and his ability to leverage those relationships that we will be able to be doing business there with the right people, people that are vetted, people that are experienced, people that are trusted, people that Larry and our former colleagues in Mexico worked with when they were assigned there, and some that are still assigned there. So these things are very important to me as Chief Compliance Officer and in charge of the security for Khiron. And that's just one example. Another example would be we just hired Trevor Devine. Trevor's a former DEA agent, just retired in the last month. He is a pilot. He is able to fly he's authorized to fly many different aircraft, both fixed wing and rotary. He is also a colonel in the United States Marine Corps, has extensive experience in moving logistics, moving personnel. He answered directly to General Midas when he was active in places like Europe and North Central Command and places like that. As we speak, Trevor is deployed to Afghanistan, working over there with our military, with our Marines, and with our contractors that are assigned there, working there. When he finishes up that assignment on August 5th, he will report to Khiron, he'll report to me, and he is going to be working with Henry Tibadiza, Khiron Security Director, to ensure that as we move our high-value product, which obviously is medical cannabis right now in Colombia, as we move our product from our grow site in Doimo, which is approximately 4.5 hours from Bogota, to Bogota and other places, facilities, labs in Colombia, and as we move our product to pharmacies in Colombia, Trevor will be working closely with Henry and others in Colombia to ensure the safety of our transportation routes, ensuring that our logistics is properly tracked and traced, ensure that we are operating in a safe manner, and ensure that we are operating with the right people, obviously in Colombia, where we'll be moving product very soon. We also brought on James Conley. Jim Conley is a criminal investigator with DEA that I've known for over 30 years. We were actually in college together. Jim has extensive experience with criminal investigations, special operations, and he was a country attaché in the Bahamas. He also was a supervisor of a strike force. He also is a retired assistant special agent in charge out of the Boston office, as was I. Worked very closely with Jim, and he's going to help us ensure that we are vetting the right people. We are vetting people properly. That we are doing business with the right people throughout Khiron's operations. So we're very, very excited about the addition of some of my former colleagues, because DEA as an agency operates in just about every country where the U.S. has an embassy, and based on that, and based on our relationships with our counterparts in those countries, with our former colleagues in those countries, we have an extensive ability to draw back on those relationships to ensure that Khiron is operating in a safe manner, compliant manner, and it just makes sense as the industry evolves to different countries, as Khiron evolves with it. As we go different places, we have people in those places that we can call. Some are friends, some are just former colleagues, but we're all on the same page. We all know each other. We all did the same thing for a long, long time. So I'm very excited about that. In regards to the National Cannabis Roundtable, Khiron joined the National Cannabis Roundtable, which is an entity headed up by our chairperson, John Boehner, former Speaker of the House. The goal of the National Cannabis Roundtable is to bring common sense federal regulation to the cannabis industry in the U.S. as things start to move forward, and hopefully federal legislation legalizing cannabis is imminent. We would like to see, prior to that, though, the Safe Banking Act legislation passed so that cannabis companies in the U.S. will no longer need to move money and product in Brinks trucks. They'll be able to utilize banks and financial institutions to do banking like other legitimate businesses in the U.S. and other countries are allowed to do.
So be able to use the electronic banking system.
Yeah, I mean, we want to use whatever's legally available to other industries should be legally available to the cannabis industry, specifically right now in those states where cannabis is legal. And obviously the hope and the goal is that cannabis is legal in every state. Probably happen sometime around the next election, I would think, because I think every candidate has spoken about cannabis legislation is favorable towards it. So what that looks like, nobody knows right now, but hey, if we could at least get the federal or at least get the banking law changed so that federally these companies could use banks, it would be a huge help. And it just makes sense, as you or anybody else that is involved in the industry knows. And we'll see. I mean, there are a lot of initiatives that the NCR is working towards, and the group works closely with legislators in the U.S. and obviously with somebody of John Boehner's stature that is very helpful. Kevin Murphy from Acreage is a member and is working closely with John Boehner to assist in getting things done. So I'm very excited about that. It's given me, in Khiron, I should say, an inside look into how things work. And we are leaders in the industry at Khiron, and we expect to be in the U.S. in a big way when federal legislation changes the law. And we already have a joint venture with Dixie, as you know. So we're not shy about entering the U.S. and there's no reason to be, because it's a huge market that we want to exploit when the time comes, and we want to be ready to move forward.
You bet. All right, Matt, that's a great update. Thank you very much for your participation. As usual, we'll leave it there for you for now and come back to you soon. Thank you for joining me today.
All right. Thanks, James. Look forward to talking to you again.
You bet. If you like the show, you'll love our website. Visit us at www.midasletter.com for interviews with key CEOs, cannabis news, and to subscribe to our newsletter. Anyways, yeah, we're back. So that's this was the week that essentially, I mean, there's really nothing going on in the cannabis space.
Nothing going on anywhere, really.
I mean, Bruce's departure from Canopy is really like the only news event that we have in the
Maybe
inventory.
because he's gone into the industry, so to speak, in Canada. Maybe that's why everything's dead now.
Bruce took the whole industry with him. There was a news item I wanted to get to yesterday about THC overdose deaths. There was a story in Newsweek that's headline was, has the first death from marijuana exposure been recorded in the United States? And I thought this was interesting. So essentially a woman in Louisiana was found to have died from a THC overdose. But there were a number of people criticizing that potentially, this is a 39-year-old woman discovered dead in her apartment, died from vaping THC oil. But it's, the coroner says it looked like it was all THC because her autopsy showed no physical disease or afflictions that were the cause of death. So it's like we've eliminated all other possibilities, therefore this must be the only one. Now, the National Center for Biotechnology Information, a branch of the National Institute of Health, said that there have been no known cases of fatal overdose from cannabis use in epidemiologic literature. Medical experts were pretty much arrayed against that. We know from really good survey data that Americans use cannabis products billions of times a year collectively, not millions of times, but billions of times. And that means if their the risk of death was 1 in a million, there would be a couple of thousand overdose deaths by now. So highly unlikely, and just emblematic of the proclivity, or rather the propensity, the capacity, what's the word I'm looking for? The inclination of mainstream news to, lean more towards the negative when it comes to anything to do with the cannabis story.
Fake news.
Fake news, exactly. Fake news from Newsweek.
So you think maybe, we should have a little segment called Fake News and point out some of the fake news
But then some of the mainstream fake news guys might point at us and say, that's fake news.
That's fake news.
And then it'll be a fake news war. They're fake news. No, you're fake news. No, I'm fake news. No, I'm fake news. You're fake news. We're the real news. You're the fake news.
Fake news.
Fake news. Anyways, fake news. Speaking of fake news, no, just kidding. What else was happening today in the major news areas? So there was a news item in USA Today. Also, just wanting to point out how you should not rely on mainstream media for your cannabis intelligence, because yet another example, a new study published on Wednesday, and this study is referred to by USA Today, suggesting that people smoked weed 2,500 years ago, earliest use yet discovered.
2,500.
2,500 years. Yet we know, because
That's BC.
Yes, it is. But we know from our conversations with I'm not going to give away all the details, a woman who's participating in our documentary film project, that there is documented references to cannabis use as a medicine from 5,000 years ago in the Ayurvedic culture of old ancient India. So 2,500 years ago, that's only half as long as it's been being used for in India. So not really a valid news item, is it? Again, fake news. And this is where, when it comes to cannabis, the mainstream really doesn't have a handle and should not be trusted. Would you agree with that assessment, Ed?
I like Friedrich Nietzsche's sort of the way he looks at words, right? He says, you really can't describe what's really going on. You can try to, but your existence is on a different level, and we've tried to use language to try and bridge the gap. But when you have a feeling and you say it in a sentence, you probably need about a couple days to explain it properly, right?
Oh, that's quite the...
That's profound.
That's a heady thought.
Yeah, well, think about it. Like, that's why people say, well, what did you say? And it goes around the room, and it never comes back the way it went out, right? So everything that gets repeated is an approximation. I'll say exaggeration. Huh. So fake news is the standard. Wow. It has to be fake.
Wow, that's a pessimistic viewpoint.
No, it's not. It's what I call reality.
Right, okay. Well, what you call reality, I call pessimism.
Well,
no, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
Here's some news that's not fake.
Okay.
We could throw this up on the... yeah, there we go. Ontario to issue 50 new licenses for cannabis stores. Now, this is quite funny because Ontario issued 25 licenses. Most of those people couldn't raise the money themselves, and they had to go and partner up with existing LPs to get their store in position. So now they're launching another 50, and this time, in addition to the previous requirements of a $50,000 line of credit, pot shop owners must now prove they also have $250,000 in capital. So, I mean, is this government smoking perhaps a little bit too much of the supply from licensed producers?
I think so. I noticed the other day Trudeau was looking a little
spacey?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, so if they couldn't raise the $50,000 or the $100,000 they need to open a store in the previous go-around, they're just going to up the price. We'll make it more difficult because that way more people will be able to do it. No, why don't you just give the licenses to the LPs, because they're the only guys with the capital, but I guess they're trying to create a
level. They're trying to give everybody a chance.
Horizontal marketplace.
Yeah, and that never works.
Well, it is a horizontal marketplace. 80% of the consumers of recreational cannabis in Ontario still source their cannabis from the black market. So it is kind of a level playing field. The licensed producers get to supply 20% of it, and the market that has been around for over 100 years gets to supply the rest of it. I find that fair for some reason. If you want to try to displace the black market, here's the first thing you got to do. Be better than the black market. Grow better weed. I cut down my 4 plants last night, and I think that you will attest that it's better than everything you've ever seen from me.
I did a little snip myself.
You did a little snip. We're going to have that segment for you on Monday. If you want to see this crop, we've got colas the size of donkey ears.
Donkey sausage.
Yeah, donkey sausage. And yeah, rude, I know. We're juvenile,
Donkey
infantile.
sausage, is that a sort of a...
Well, you know, that's ground up donkeys.
Mule
variation.
Fodder for the mule. Wait, you know what a mule is? Do you know what a mule is?
Hello, mutter.
You know what the difference between a donkey and a mule?
Yeah.
What?
A mule is half horse.
No, can't reproduce. A mule can't produce.
Really?
Yeah.
So what? All those mules are at the end of the line? The end of the end? What? How can that be? How can there be more mules?
Don't ask me.
So mules don't breed. So I guess isn't a mule the combination between a horse and a donkey?
I think so. There's something.
And donkeys can breed.
Yeah, donkeys can breed.
And horses can breed.
Yeah. What about asses?
Well, an ass is a donkey.
Is it?
Or is it a mule?
I think the mule is asexual
being.
A
sexual being. We're all sexual beings.
Asexual.
You're an asexual being. I'm asexual being.
Okay.
But so the mules don't get to have any sort of fun hanky-panky.
Oh, they get to have all the fun because they don't have to worry about it.
Oh, well,
they have no support payments.
I don't think mules have really spent too much time thinking about child support in the throes of passion.
They don't?
I wouldn't think so. Hee-haw, hee-haw, hee-haw. Oh, wait a sec. I got a child support payment to make. This is over. I'm going home.
Did you ever read anything by the famous science fiction writer Asimov?
Isaac Asimov?
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that I read his entire body of work, but I read substantially all of it.
Did you read the Foundation series?
I read, yeah, of course.
And they referred to that one guy that was that anomaly. They called him the mule. You remember that? Because
I can't remember
actually
much of it.
on the cover of the book, there was a picture of a mule, and then you found out what it meant. But that's somebody's. But there's
Yeah, it's been probably 40 years since I read Asimov.
Brilliant guy.
Yeah. But so anyway, so the 50 new stores in
50.
Ontario. Yeah. You know, I don't understand the thinking behind this because it's like right now, I mean, so I just cropped out on enough marijuana to last me for a year at least, and that's if I give half of it away. I can buy marijuana from probably any of a dozen people within a stone's throw from my front door who are not licensed producers. If I want, I can get it sent to me in the mail, but that's actually the worst marijuana available in the country from my personal experience.
Right. The worst?
The worst, yeah. The worst cannabis in Canada comes from the legal supply system. I can say that with absolute certainty because I consume a lot of cannabis.
Why is that?
Well, it's
because you think the government's involved?
Because of the rules, yes. It's because the government's involved. Because there's this conviction that cannabis has to be sterile before it is safe to consume, that they put it through this process that renders the quality of the cannabis relative to black market cannabis extremely low in terms of the quality of the smoke, i.e., THC content and terpene content, and therefore full flavor and smoke quality characteristic.
Is it terpene or terpen?
Terpene. Like terpentine?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, because they don't say terpene, they say terpentine.
I say terpene time. What time is it? Terpene time?
No, you don't say terpene, you just say terpene.
Terpene. Anyways, that's our show for the week. We hope you enjoyed it. We're down to 1 hour per day, but we're back to every day this week. Don't forget to like us and subscribe to the newsletter if you want to hear about early stage private placement opportunities for accredited investors only who are part of our family. You must be associated with us, which means you must sign up for the newsletter. And thank you to our sponsor, Halo Labs. Go visit them at halocana.com to learn more. We'll see you next week.